DraftKings.com for details. Sheesh is right, Dwayne, but we are not sheeshing over injuries. We are sheeshing over the tilting near miss beyond the box score moments that if you watch the games, you definitely saw out there. But if you didn't, good news, you're listening to us now so we can catch you up on all the needed context before we can officially move on to week 3. So first things first, Dwayne, talked about it in our Sunday night recap, but as much as AD Mitchell might have been could have been star, I should say, of week 1, just one missed opportunity after another. It was actually George Pickens in week 2, a guy who had under 30 scoreless yards in the box score, Dwayne. But as we saw out there, gave Pat Surtain and the Broncos a lot of troubles and honestly, a few just near miss plays away from having a much bigger day.
Yeah, George Pickens is one of these players, like watching him, like you can just feel it, Ian. Like if he was playing with a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, one of these really good quarterbacks on a pass first offense, like we would probably have him as a wide receiver 1. Like he would be one of the top wide receivers in the league. Of course, there are other factors in play. He's got to deal with some quarterback issues there. He's got to deal with a run heavy offense, minus 13% drop back rate over expected for the Steelers. Guys, that is not wanting to throw the ball at all. That's wanting to run the ball all the time. So it really hurts when we have these small misses for a guy like Pickens, who we know has the talent to perform in fantasy.
Specifically, guys, 51-yard catch over past Surtain down the right sideline, got nullified on an offensive hold. Had a 6-yard touchdown that also got nullified on an OPI by Van Jefferson that really didn't think it made a big difference in the touchdown actually being completed. Also picked up a 37-yard defensive pass interference penalty on Surtain later in the game. So directly missed out on 13.7 PPR points, not even including that DPI penalty. So Pickens through 2 weeks, averaging career high marks in yards per route run, passer rating when targeted, targets per route run. Really do think bigger and better days could be ahead again when the sheesh gods aren't being such dicks about it. Dwayne, up next, the unrealized air yards leaderboard. And for those unfamiliar with the concept, we are basically just measuring the total distance that the football traveled on incomplete targets. So if I'm 50 yards downfield and Dwayne throws me a pass that lands at my feet, that is 50 unrealized air yards. Helps, I guess, quantify, missed fantasy friendly opportunity and shows that not all targets are created equal. And what's so crazy about this week's totals, Dwayne, is only 3 guys finished with over 100. Alec Pierce with 109, DJ Moore with 118. But in number 1, someone that still managed to have a really good game, Giants rookie wide receiver Malik Neighbors, 163 unrealized air yards. And Dwayne, it's a great example that as great as Neighbors has been this year, actually somehow still some meat on the bone in a Giants offense that, would be a lot cooler if they had a better quarterback.
Yeah, it hurts. But I will say overall, like the catchable target rate, 65%, like you can live on that when you're out here, Ian, with a target share of 65% in one game. Like, obviously, this is not sustainable. Like, you can't have a 65% target share. Malik Neighbors now sitting at 39% on the year. Route participation, he's almost never leaving the field, 96% on the season. He has a utilization score of 9.1. I think that's going to end up somewhere in the 8s because of what he's dealing with Daniel Jones once everything finally takes hold. But still, man, it's crazy that this guy, as young as he is, Ian, is in that 9 to 10 bucket for utilization score, with the best score being a 10. And you go back and historically look at wide receivers in that range, they've given us 20 plus fantasy points per game in a season. So when you look at Malik Neighbors on the surface, you're like, man, 21.1 right now in a PPR format, and you think, oh, that's just got to come way down. I do think it's going to come down, but I'm not someone thinking that you should be selling high on Malik Neighbors. I think at worst, you've got a high-end wide receiver 2 here, because Daniel Jones is, for all the struggles he has, he's not as bad as Zach Wilson. He's not as bad as some of these other quarterbacks we've seen. He's getting catchable targets into the range of Malik Neighbors, and he's allowing Neighbors to do the rest. Now, you don't get to face the Commanders every week, Ian. Like, we know that. Like, so as soon as you post anything about Neighbors, not going to play the Commanders every week. We know, guys. We know there's going to be tougher matchups on the horizon, but I still think when everything shakes out, and again, you've got a minimum of a high-end wide receiver 2. You still might have a low-end wide receiver 1.
Browns and Cowboys over these next 2 weeks for the G-men. So yeah, going to be a bit tougher. Other wide receivers that have between 85 and 96 unrealized air yards: CeeDee Lamb, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Jackson Smith Najigba, Devontae Adams, Gabe Davis, and Amari Cooper. So on the season, only Calvin Ridley and Amari Cooper already have over 200 unrealized air yards. Yes, both have had some missed opportunities from their quarterbacks, but honestly, Amari Cooper right now tied with Elijah Moore for a league high 3 drops, and Calvin Ridley, as much as as Levis has missed him a few times, did drop a beautiful 40-yard pearl that could have been another big game for what was otherwise a pretty good game for him against the Jets. All right, Dwayne, final category. It's close but no cigar. Ball carriers who got tackled at the 1 yard line and then failed to score a touchdown on the same drive. I call it the Eagles RB category because as we see, every time they get down the doorstep of the goal line, Jalen Hurts gets his tush push and usually ends up in the end zone. So yes, welcome to the club, Saquon Barkley, but more players who got so close but couldn't quite score. Joe Burrow on a QB sneak, although he did throw a touchdown a few plays later. Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Jacobs, and Aaron Jones both pulled a Travis Etienne and fumbled just before crossing the goal line. That one was especially shishi. Also had Bills running back Ty Johnson and Browns running back Deontay Foreman joining the club. At wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Olave, and Jalen Waddle. And at tight end, Dwayne, two notable names, Travis Kelce, who also had a cool 41-yard catch and run nullified, and Brock Bowers, who is having a great rookie season, but could have been even bigger if, again, he got about one more foot on a nice little catch and run himself. So Kelce and Bowers, Dwayne, two guys that, yeah, haven't found the end zone just yet, but certainly seems like bigger and better days are ahead for both.
Yeah, we'll talk about Bowers here more in a minute, but I think Kelsey's an absolute buy low candidate. Ian, great job covering the plays that came off the board and the near miss there. Kelsey, 88% route participation last weekend. So they're not pulling him off the field. So people thinking that the guy's old and they're having to manage his workload, they're not. They're playing him in a full-time role. He has the third best route participation in the NFL right now for a tight end. And yeah, even though he may not be what he once was, I have a hard time believing that once the season is over that we don't see Travis Kelce as a top 3 tight end. So if someone in your league is thinking he's old, he's baked, we don't want to fully, be committed to him anymore and you can swoop in and trade for him, then I would definitely try to do it.
And he really did look spry on that aforementioned 41-yard catch and run. And also in, token Kelce fashion, faked it lateral about 30 yards downfield and kind of works. So, in one of those things that I think Jerry Jeudy proved to us all last year that no matter how absurd the idea of a fake, pump fake might be with the football, defenders usually react to it anyway. So that was the Shoosh Report, everyone. You can check out the full article over at fantasylife.com. But yeah, with that, we are officially ready to move on to week 3.